Hello, I'm Sami Zaidan. This is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, the world economy is growing. The chief economist at the IMF tells us what's behind the sunnier outlook and where the dark clouds might still be lurking. Also this week, a snap election is called in the UK. But what does it mean for the economy and those tricky Brexit negotiations? Plus, special effects in our everyday life. The CEO of Facebook wants us all to filter our reality, but who exactly would that benefit? Well, the outlook for the global GDP just started to look a whole lot sunnier. The International Monetary Fund says the world's economy is on track for its strongest growth in half a decade. Well, that sunnier picture isn't just about the world's richest nations. Emerging and low-income economies are all seeing a more optimistic outlook. The IMF lifted its forecast for world growth by 1/10 of a percentage point to 3.5% for this year. It's not a massive hike, but it's still a welcome wind of change. The IMF also posted better outlooks for all 5 of Europe's largest economies, including the UK. So Brexit is not impacting the economy there yet. Well, the UK economy is now expected to expand by 2% this year, but there are still plenty of hurdles to jump. The IMF did warn political pressure to restrict trade and geopolitical tensions have the potential to stall economic growth. So I'm joined now by Maurice Obstfeld, the fund's chief economist. Good to have you with us. So what's driving the recovery then?
Yeah, we're really excited about this upgrade to our forecast. We've been predicting a bounce back for a while, but now it actually seems to be happening with growth up from 3.1 to 3.5% projected for 2017. We're excited in part because it's pretty broad-based. We see strength in Europe, Asia, the US, and so there is some momentum there. Of course, we worry about risks to this forecast coming either from economic events or from political events.
Well, China's important to global growth, isn't it? Have the fears about the slowdown in its growth now gone away?
Well, there's a weak global trend in productivity growth that is a concern over the medium term. We were very concerned about China in the first half of 2016, which is one reason for the disappointing growth performance in that year. But, China's growth has definitely rebounded, and, we even see upside risks to our current forecast based on what we've seen in very recent data. Longer term, we do worry that Chinese growth is being supported by domestic credit expansion and postponement of some tough reforms that they need to make to state-owned enterprises and other parts of the economy to make their growth truly durable and sustainable.
We're talking about expansion, as you mentioned there. Economic inequality still a challenge. Is the wealth gap growing or decreasing across the globe?
Well, it's actually, if you actually look at data in the very recent years, inequality has not increased as much in many countries as it had in the past. Nonetheless, the past increases have been very significant, and that is part of the story of the backlash toward globalization, the distrust of elites, all of which are driving more inward-looking political movements that are skeptical of international integration.
What about technological change? Is that creating a new global economy? What does it mean for jobs?
Well, there is a concern that automation will make jobs obsolete. This has been a concern since the threshing machine and machine weaving hundreds of years ago. Government should take this seriously. They should invest in education for their workforces and make sure that the jobs of the future are also the jobs for which workers are qualified. So I'm not trying to be complacent. I think governments do have to take it seriously, but I also think that these problems have always been solved and they can continue to be solved in the future.
All right, some good analysis there from Mr. Opsfeld. Thanks for that. Now, the United Kingdom is holding a general election in June, and it's shaping up to be all about Brexit. UK Prime Minister Theresa May said an early election was the only way to guarantee political stability as Britain negotiates its way out of the European Union. Here's Barnaby Phillips now with more from London.
Questions to the Prime Minister.
She's a Prime Minister without a mandate from the British people, chosen only by Conservative MPs in the chaos after the Brexit referendum. Now she wants to put that right, and Brexit will be the issue on which she will seek to fight this election.
And every vote for the Conservatives will mean we can stick to our plan for a stronger Britain and take the right long-term decisions for a more secure future for this country.
Most MPs from the opposition Labour Party joined the Conservatives in voting for an early election. If they hadn't, they risked appearing as if they didn't believe in their own policies. But with their leader Jeremy Corbyn doing badly in the polls, they face a big challenge. He argued that the Prime Minister does not keep her word.
We welcome the general election, but this is a Prime Minister who promised there wouldn't be one. A Prime Minister who cannot be trusted.
Westminster is an excitable place right now. Most MPs didn't see this early election coming and are now hurriedly preparing to defend their seats. But away from here, the mood amongst the wider British public may not be so enthusiastic. This is the third big national vote in just 3 years, and all the parties will be thinking carefully about how to motivate their supporters to ensure they actually turn out and vote. In London, which is disproportionately pro-Labour and anti-Brexit, many commuters seem to take a dim view of the Prime Minister's motives.
It made me think that Theresa May is just trying to destroy Jeremy Corbyn. It's just a sign of the failure of the Labour Party to be a proper opposition.
To be honest, I think it's rubbish. We've already voted. I voted to stay in. Well, yeah, to remain in the EU. But what's the point in doing it in the first place?
Pro-Conservative newspapers say those who try to oppose Theresa May and thwart Brexit are unpatriotic. Expect a lot more of this in the campaign. Parliament will be dissolved in 2 weeks' time. At this stage, the election result feels like a foregone conclusion. But the campaigning will be brutal, uncompromising, and relentless nonetheless.
Well, joining us now from London is Gregor Irwin. He's the Chief Economist at the Global Council. Good to have you with us. So what do these early elections in the UK mean for the British Prime Minister? Will she have a stronger negotiating position when it comes to those Brexit talks?
Hello, Sammy. Well, the British Prime Minister will be entering the elections in a position of great political strength. She has a commanding lead in the opinion polls. She faces a fairly feeble opposition in the form of Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour Party leader, who most of the British electorate doesn't really regard as being a credible Prime Minister. So that means she has the prospect of winning a large majority in the elections, and that will certainly strengthen her position in the Brexit negotiations. It's not so much the effect that it will have in Brussels, it's the ability that it will give her to set the terms of the UK's approach to Brexit herself. She won't be beholden to Conservative backbenchers in Parliament, and she won't face serious opposition from other parties in Parliament either. So she will be able to dictate the British approach.
But jumping on to that key point you hinted at there, the fact that she won't be beholden to opposition inside or outside her party, what does that mean for a hard Brexit? Does that become less or more likely?
Well, I think, quite frankly, it means that she will be able to decide what form of Brexit the UK would like to negotiate with the rest of Europe. There are certainly those within her own party, if you like, hardline Eurosceptics, who would like Brexit to take a hard form, who don't want to reach any compromise on important issues such as immigration rights for EU nationals in the UK, the role played by the European Court of Justice, perhaps even indirectly in the UK after the UK leaves the EU. And they have, when the Prime Minister has just a majority of 17 in the British Parliament, they've been able to control some of the positions that Theresa May has taken so far in the approach to Brexit. After the election, those constraints will be removed.
How do you think Europe will respond to a changing situation where, as you outlined, the British Prime Minister will be in a stronger negotiating position domestically in the UK?
Well, I think the initial reaction in Brussels to the announcement was a sigh, yet another election in Europe, more political uncertainty. Since then, I think the reaction has been more of a shrug as far as the European side is concerned.
Did you think Europeans might toughen their negotiating position?
Well, I think they're prepared and ready to negotiate. They know exactly what their negotiating objectives are. They still need to be formally agreed by European leaders at a summit that will take place at the end of this month, but it's pretty clear what those negotiating objectives will be. And in a strange way, actually, the European side may welcome a clearer UK position. They'll welcome the fact that actually whatever Theresa May and her negotiating team agree with them in the negotiating room, that she will be able to win support for that deal in the British Parliament, assuming that she does secure a large majority in the election.
And as we've all heard, the IMF is revising its forecast for the UK economy now. Do you think a little more positive outlook is warranted at this point?
Well, it's warranted in the sense that certainly the worst predictions for the UK economy since the referendum result have just not materialised. In particular, consumer confidence has held up. That's been very robust. Business investment has been a bit softer. Now, the IMF's forecast that's been revised is for this year, 2017. So in a sense, the IMF is really just catching up with that economic news. What is much less clear is what the outlook is for the UK economy in future years, in 2018, 2019, 2020, and that's when the impact of Brexit will really be felt.
Okay, so for viewers watching from around the world, what does an improved forecast for the UK mean to someone, a businessman in Indonesia, for example?
Well, I think if you're looking at investment in the UK, it means that for the time being, we're looking at a period of relative macro stability, reasonably robust growth, 2% growth in 2017 is the IMF's forecast. Sterling is actually stabilised. Sterling rose a little bit on the news of the election. So that points to a slightly stronger picture in terms of investments in the UK, but the big uncertainty in future is policy uncertainty. It's about the UK's relationship with the EU, it's about the policy framework in the UK, and that will be the issue which hangs over investment decisions in the UK.
Gregor Irwin, good talking to you. Spain is home to a large British expatriate community. Entrepreneurs have established companies. After the UK voted to leave the EU, they now fear their ventures are being undermined. Lawrence Lee reports from Barcelona.
Bertie and Poppy are 8 and 10, but already they speak 3 languages. They're British, but were born in Spain because their parents moved here to make a success of themselves. Carrie runs 3 companies, juggles the kids during the holidays,
some water.
And is furious that all they have worked for is at risk because of Brexit.
I would not consider going back to Britain, and if it came to a decision of going back to Britain or somewhere else, then I would choose the somewhere else. I feel that angry about it.
Yeah.
It's a different country to the country that I left, and you know, Britain for me was always it was the cradle of democracy, of tolerance, and I look at it now as parochial and small-minded, and I wouldn't want my children to be brought up in that kind of environment.
Much has been made of the British people who moved to Spain for a life in the sun and don't do much except complain about immigrants in Britain. But there is another constituency here which says it is being ignored. Deborah built a public relations company in Barcelona from nothing and employs 20 people. She founded a group to speak for British businesses which have become voiceless.
The majority of the membership feel that they haven't got a voice, they're not being represented in any way, and that how we feel and think about our future isn't being taken into account by anybody. The point is, if you've been in Spain more than 10 years, which is my case, you don't have the right to vote. So we didn't have a voice, we were completely disenfranchised in the Brexit vote. And now, who's going to care, given that we can't vote, who's going to care to follow up what it is we need?
How strange that the entrepreneurs, so admired by the UK Conservative government, have become bargaining chips. European Union negotiators have already proposed the idea of associate EU membership for British citizens who want to live and work in the EU even after Brexit, but that is assumed to be contingent on similar rights for EU citizens who want to stay in the United Kingdom. If it turns out that the main reason for Brexit is to cut immigration, then British people who want to try to enjoy a career in somewhere like Barcelona would probably be out of luck. The Spanish view is that that would be a loss for everyone.
We'll lose with Brexit. We believe the UK loses, but also the European Union loses. We'll lose mobility and the ability to attract talent. Instead of a win-win, it's a loss-loss relationship.
The strongest supporters of Brexit are fond of claiming the European Union is as undemocratic as the Soviet Union. Hard-working British people here feel it is the entire Leave campaign which contains the ability to deny them their rights.
And still to come on Counting the Cost, we'll look at how an e-learning boom is taking shape in the world's second largest economy. But first, South Korea is suffering economically over rising tensions on the Korean peninsula. When it deployed an American anti-missile defense system known as THAAD, China responded with sanctions. Well, Chinese people are now banned from holidaying in South Korea. Craig Leeson travelled to the island of Jeju, where many tourism operators are struggling.
When spring arrives on this tiny volcanic island, a remarkable transformation takes place. Just 90 kilometres off the south coast of the Korean peninsula, Jeju's blooming canola flowers attract hordes of tourists.
In other parts of Korea, tourist spots are scattered around, but here in Jeju, everything is in one place. During a 3-day trip, you can see flowers, the ocean, and also the mountain.
Jeju is one of the few places in the world Chinese can visit without a visa. Their spending more significant than any foreign country. But this year, the Chinese stopped coming. And this is why. America's Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System, or THAAD. China sees this new missile defense system as a threat to be used to spy on its military. In retaliation, it has banned travel companies from sending tourists to South Korea, a move that has drawn deep criticism.
Setting aside our political or military stance, I think linking such issues to private exchanges in the tourism sector is un-Chinese.
The ban has had an immediate effect on business in Jeju. The number of foreign tourist arrivals in March fell by 56%, half of which were Chinese, and that figure is set to get worse. Today, 78% fewer Chinese arrived than on this day last year, a scenario which is playing out all around South Korea. Jeju's duty-free stores, once thriving businesses, are now almost empty. Hotels catering to Chinese across the island, empty.
Half of staff have been placed on unpaid leave. We recorded a deficit in February and March, with revenues shrinking to 50% of last year.
But the island is rethinking its focus, retooling and concentrating on new markets.
We are diversifying the origins of tourists, ranging from South Korea, Southeast Asian countries, Japan and Muslim countries.
Ironically, total tourist numbers are now on the increase. South Koreans are filling the void, taking advantage of cheap flights and accommodation and the new focus on the domestic market. Nationally, the government is providing $200 million in special loans and guarantees to help Korean companies through the crisis. And in Jeju, far from hurting the economy, the Chinese ban appears to be helping foster a local business renaissance.
Last year, the game Pokemon Go was a global hit on smartphones. As our technology editor Tarek Mazli explains, Facebook is now attempting to use that same kind of augmented reality technology to grow its platform.
Hey everyone! Facebook's F8 Developers Conference is regarded as the event to watch for insights into what the tech giant sees as the future. And this year, it's augmented reality, a technology that superimposes computer-generated graphics on a user's view of the real world.
So that's why I'm so excited about augmented reality, because it's going to make it so that we can create all kinds of things that until today have only been possible in the digital world, and we're going to be able to interact with them and explore them together. So augmented reality is going to help us mix the digital and the physical in all new ways, and that's going to make our physical reality better. So that's why this is such an important trend.
Facebook now has over 1.8 billion people using its platform, most of them on smartphones. With the arrival of 360-degree video and increasingly powerful virtual reality headsets, it's now calling on developers to create immersive content and games for its platforms. No doubt it would like to replicate the success of last year's smash hit game Pokemon Go within Facebook. That game was downloaded by 500 million people, making it the most successful mobile app of all time. Facebook's commitment to augmented reality is also being seen as a response to the success of Snapchat, which used filters like these to entertain and engage audiences. Clearly, Facebook would like to see these techniques used to keep people on its platform. Facebook's also seeking immersive content for news organisations like Al Jazeera. Last week, Contrast VR, an immersive storytelling channel, was launched through the social media platform.
I think they're really trying to capture as many people as possible and bring them into the platform. And once they've brought them in, they want to keep them there. And the currency kind of becomes attention. How do you keep people engaged? How do you keep them involved? And what Facebook is betting on is that this is all about sharing, and this is about living in a virtual space together, and this is about enhancing our environments, and they think that will keep people's attention and pull them away from other platforms like, say, Snapchat.
Wow, nice!
Until now, Facebook has largely relied on individuals and media companies to provide the text, photo and video content on its platform for free. Augmented and virtual reality is much more complex and difficult to produce. It's unclear whether Facebook is prepared to pay for this content, but without that incentive, it may have trouble finding the developers it needs.
And finally, millions of parents in China are eager for their children to learn English. That's led to a boom in so-called e-learning. Western teachers living in places far from China are using video conference technology to teach children in their own homes. Andrew Thomas reports from Shanghai.
After 6 hours at school, Chu Xinyi comes home to another lesson, one-on-one coaching in English.
Nice to meet you.
From an American teacher sitting half a world away.
How old are you?
6. Remote learning, with lessons delivered by live video over the internet, makes this sort of teaching possible and affordable.
Chinese in the future will be another international language, but for now, English is very important until now.
This is rabbit. Parents pay $3,000 a year for twice-weekly half-hour lessons, supplemented by videos, exercises and tests.
You can teach from anywhere. They can hire teachers from wherever they want, professionals in America. Time zone doesn't matter, and I feel this is just so convenient. This is so you can just be right here on your computer anytime. You can just take a shower, you can just be ready. So I do feel this is the future.
Small snake. Moses used to teach classes in person, but thinks this, one-to-one and focused on a screen, is better.
This sort of teaching is growing in popularity. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese children are already learning this way. 4 or 5 companies are competing to attract millions more.
Dada ABC in Shanghai is one of the relatively new startups. The company says last year Chinese investors poured more than $500 million into the business.
This year we're seeing huge growth. We have 800 employees at the moment. We'll have 1,000 by next month.
That doesn't include the freelance Western teachers sitting at computers around the world. The company's Shanghai office is the base for salespeople, technical staff and teaching assistants. From here, they watch over the lessons between foreign teachers and Chinese students and follow up with the children between them. One-on-one tuition with Western teachers used to be the preserve for China's richest. Technology means it's becoming increasingly mainstream.
Cat.
Well, that's our show for you this week. There's more for you online at aljazeera.com/CTC. That'll take you straight to our page, which has individual reports, links and entire episodes for you to catch up on. You can also get in touch with us via email. countingthecost@aljazeera.net is our address. That's it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Sami Zaidan from the whole team here now. Thanks for joining us. The news on Al Jazeera is next.